Heart Eyes was a movie that caught me by surprise when I saw it in theaters earlier this year. I knew I was going into a slasher horror movie, but I didn't think I was going into a genuine rom-com. I knew I would want to see it again when it came to streaming, and now that Heart Eyes is on Netflix, we can talk about it. There will be some spoilers ahead, just an FYI. Directed by Josh Rubin and written by Philip Murphy, Christopher Landon, and Michael Kennedy, Heart Eyes follows a masked menace who stalks and murders couples on Valentine's Day. Over the past 2 years, the Heart Eyes Killer, aka HEK, has reigned terror in Boston and in Philly, but now HEK has migrated to Seattle as the next targeted city where the location of this story takes place. Hard Eyes had a strong opening, setting the scene for the type of killer HEK is, and I was on the edge of my seat with anticipation. This is the type of movie that hooks you from the beginning and takes you on a wild ride until the end. Then the film goes into the main characters, and here is where it gets rom-commy. Allie, played by Olivia Holt, who works in advertising, has a meet cute with a handsome stranger named Jay, played by Mason Gooding, at a coffee shop when they unexpectedly order the same very specific drink. Allie's coworker Monica, played by Gigi Zumbado, pushes Allie to make a move as she is getting over a breakup, but it goes embarrassingly wrong. Gigi didn't have a lot of screen time, but when she did, she delivered. I was looking at her the whole time like she looked so familiar and I couldn't place it, but then I paid extra attention to those credits this time around and saw her last name and put two and two together. Her sister, Carmela, played Delilah on You Season 2. They look a lot alike. But back to Hard Eyes. Fast forward to Allie at work getting dragged for a questionable ad she submitted for a Valentine's Day campaign that features tragic lovers. In order for the company to save face, a consultant is brought in to try and salvage the campaign. And guess what? That consultant is none other than a handsome coffee shop stranger, Jay. Jay asks Allie on a work date to workshop ideas, and that happens to coincide with Valentine's Day. An incident forces Allie to pretend to be in a relationship with Jay, but unbeknownst to them, the Heart Eyes Killer mistakes them for a real couple, and Allie and Jay become the next targets for HEK, while detectives Hobbs and Shaw, played by Devon Sawa and Jordana Brewster, investigate. And the rest of the plot unfolds from there, but there were many times during Heart Eyes that I kept asking myself, am I watching a rom-com? All the rom-com tropes were scattered in this movie. There was a chaotic meet cute, we got a spunky best friend, there's drama at work, we get a makeover montage, there is a jaded woman who doesn't believe in romance and love, and the charming guy who wants to change her mind. And then the next thing you know, HEK shows up with cupid arrows with hearts on the tails, ending someone. It really was an unexpected and interesting balance of genres that often don't go together, but it worked well in this movie. This movie is a slasher, and Heart Eyes doesn't shy away from the gore. The violence is extreme when it's extreme, but not gratuitous, and it has some gnarly deaths. There was nothing too special about the way the film was shot, and it didn't do anything unique for the slasher subgenre. It's a standard tale of victims spending a night trying to evade a killer that takes the viewer to several locations where they have a run-in with the killer and they barely escape. All those sequences were exciting and done nicely, but the ending dragged for me. The only downside that comes to mind is the motive of the Heart Eyes Killer. It was very lackluster and flawed in how the killer picks victims. And I remember watching it in theaters and hated it, but it wasn't that bad the second time viewing. And I also think this is a standalone movie. In a world of sequels, I think Heart Eyes ended just fine with no need to continue the story. I do want to point out the comedic aspect of this film. While I find humor in any genre, the jokes in Hard Eyes were plentiful. I found myself laughing out loud throughout the film, especially when it leaned into the rom-com aspect. There's a particular scene in the final act featuring Olivia and Gigi's characters that I didn't realize what was happening until well into the joke, and it delivered. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Overall, Heart Eyes is a fun, clever, and dare I say romantic addition to slashers because why am I getting teary-eyed at the end of a horror movie? Now, it may fall flat for some, but Heart Eyes is one of those dumb horror movies that could become a cult classic one day, especially in regards to holiday horror. We hardly have any Valentine Day ones, so Heart Eyes is a nice addition to that. Be sure to stick around for a brief mid-credit scene before your next content plays. Heart Eyes is streaming now on Netflix. If you watch the movie, tell me how you think Heart Eyes fits into the slasher genre in the comments.